I walked into that boardroom expecting a partnership, but my wife handed the promotion to the intern I'd trained. She thought I'd quietly accept the humiliation. Instead, I walked out, started my own firm, and prepared a legal package that would dismantle her entire career. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious, where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. I walked into the partner meeting feeling invincible. I had spent 3 grueling months tightening that pitch, obsessing over every decimal point, every slide transition, and every case study. I didn't just do the work, I lived it. 12-hour days were the minimum, weekends were non-existent, and sleepless nights were the standard price of admission. I had sacrificed everything for this meeting because I knew the payout was finally within reach. The room was cold, carrying that sterilized scent of expensive coffee and dry erase markers. I stood at the head of the heavy oak table, my laptop humming, the projector beam cutting through the dim light. I even cracked a joke to lighten the heavy atmosphere. "Hope my raise is bigger than the coffee budget this quarter," I said with a confident grin. I got a few polite chuckles, some nods of acknowledgement from the junior partners. Then Claire laughed. It was louder than anyone else's, sharp and jarring. Claire wasn't just a senior partner at the firm, she was also my wife. We had shared a home, a life, and a career trajectory for 15 years. She looked me dead in the eye, her expression shifting from amusement to something icy and detached. "Raise?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly. "Oh no, Rick." She gestured toward the far end of the table. That promotion went to Tanner. Just like that, the room froze. It was as if someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the space. No one moved. No one took a sip of their coffee. I stared at her, my clicker still gripped in my hand, thinking maybe it was a dry, corporate joke. It had to be. I waited for the punchline, for her to wink or smile. Instead, her assistant, Amanda, a woman with a tight bun and eyes that never seemed to blink, slid a thick folder across the mahogany table toward me. It slid with a harsh, rasping sound and stopped right in front of my hands. It was labeled Rick Wallace, Performance Review. I hadn't even been considered. And then there was Tanner. He sat across from me with that smug quarter smile plastered on his face. His haircut was slicked back with too much product, his button-down shirt tight enough to look uncomfortable on purpose. 31 years old, 2 years on the team, and technically my trainee. I had taught him how to run reports. I had taught him how to pitch clean. I let him shadow me for client meetings, correcting his emails and smoothing over his rookie mistakes. He gave me a casual shrug, lifting his palms slightly like he had forgotten to mention a minor detail. Like it just slipped his mind that he got promoted using the exact playbook I wrote. I looked down at my presentation deck still in my hand. It was still warm from the laptop fan, dense with data and strategy I had spent weeks building. It was useless now. The silence in the room wasn't respect, it was the sound of my life shattering. Nobody said a word. The silence stretched out, becoming a physical weight pressing down on my chest. Claire didn't offer an explanation or a comforting glance. She simply tapped her pen on her notebook and moved on to the next item on the agenda like nothing had happened, like I wasn't even standing there. "Moving on to Q4 projections," she said, her voice steady and professional. I sat there for 10 more minutes, maybe 15, though it felt like hours. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a dull, thudding rhythm of shock. I watched Tanner nod at something Claire said, pretending to take notes in a fresh leather notebook I knew was empty. Finally, I stood up. The chair scraped loud against the floor, but I didn't care. I packed my laptop, coiled my charger, and picked up my notebook. I didn't slam the door, I didn't say a word, I just walked out. I went straight to my office and started boxing it up. It was a surreal experience, dismantling 10 years of my life while the office hummed along outside my glass walls. I took my potted plant, my chipped coffee mug, and the framed photo of my daughter, Kayla, grinning in front of the San Diego Zoo when she was 7. I left the awards on the shelf. I left the plaques. Let Tanner hang them if he wanted. I walked to the elevator carrying a single cardboard box. I didn't yell, I didn't beg, but I wasn't done either. The drive home was a blur of gray highway and red taillights. I pulled into the garage, killed the engine, and sat there in the dark for a long time. The silence of the house usually brought me peace. But today it felt heavy. I didn't go inside to wallow. Instead, I sat at my workbench in the garage, pushed aside a stack of old magazines, and pulled out a fresh yellow legal pad. I picked up a pen and started writing. I wasn't writing a resignation letter, I was writing a list, every client I had landed, every internal process I had built. Passwords, contacts, campaign templates, proprietary workflows, all of it. This wasn't a mental breakdown, it was an inventory check. I wasn't crying, I was organizing. They thought they had taken everything from me by giving Tanner the title. But as I stared at the growing list of assets that lived exclusively in my head, I realized they had forgotten one crucial thing. You can steal the blueprint, but you can't steal the architect. Claire got home around 6 o'clock, breezing through the door like it was any other Tuesday. She kicked off her heels, dropped her keys into the ceramic dish with a loud clatter and walked into the kitchen, humming some mindless commercial jingle. "What do you feel like for dinner?" she asked, opening the pantry. She spoke casually, as if we were just another married couple ending a regular day, as if she hadn't publicly gutted my career 4 hours ago. I was leaning against the granite counter, my arms crossed over my chest. The garage air still clung to my shirt. "You gave Tanner the promotion." She paused. It wasn't a long pause, just enough to show she wasn't entirely caught off guard. She had rehearsed this. She turned slowly, her face composed. "Rick, come on, we've talked about this, it's optics." "Optics?" I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "I landed the Thompson account from a hospital bed with a fever of 102 while you were sipping cocktails in Cabo. I built the entire back-end strategy for the firm. What about that optic?" She turned her back to me and opened the fridge, staring into it like she was suddenly starving. "You're my husband, Rick. Promoting you makes things messy. It looks like favoritism. The board is sensitive to nepotism right now." I stepped closer, my voice low. "So Tanner is the solution? Tanner, the guy who forgot to attach the budget file to the Greenrise proposal 3 times. Tanner has young, fresh energy," she said, grabbing a bottle of white wine. "That's what the market responds to now, fresh energy." She let out a fake, breathless little laugh, shaking her head as if I were being ridiculous. "He's good with clients, Rick. People like him, he's dynamic." I kept my voice even, though my hands were shaking at my sides. "I spent 8 months fixing what Brent burned to the ground, you know that. I rebuilt the messaging, cleaned up operations, rewrote every one of our pitch decks. I taught Tanner how to tie his tie, let alone run a meeting." Claire pulled out a bottle of Chardonnay and poured herself a full glass, not bothering to offer me one. "That's how the business works," she said, taking a sip and not even looking at me. "It's not always about who works the most hours. You're steady, Rick, you're reliable, but Tanner, he's the face of the future." That's when I knew she wasn't even trying to deny the unfairness of it. She had made her move. Tanner wasn't just some rising star she had noticed. He was the chosen one, my replacement in every sense that mattered to the firm. "I'm going to change," she said, dismissing me with a wave of her wine glass. She walked off into the living room like the conversation was over, like my 10 years of loyalty were nothing more than a footnote she had already edited out. I stood there in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, my jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. She thought the conversation was over because she held the title. She didn't realize that by dismissing me, she had just created her most dangerous competitor. That night, Claire went to bed early. She claimed she was exhausted from the emotional toll of the day, leaving her laptop open on the dining room table. The little green power light pulsed in the dim room, a beacon in the darkness. I stood there for a moment debating. I wasn't a jealous husband, I wasn't a snoop. But I was a strategist, and something about the way she had dismissed me, so calculated, so prepared, didn't sit right. So I looked. I wasn't invading her privacy, I was confirming a hypothesis. I sat down and woke the screen. There it was, staring back at me in high resolution. Notes in Tanner's voice flagged on a draft email. "Slide 6 needs Rick's metric from the Freeman deck, can you pull that?" I scrolled further, subject lines from Claire to Tanner. "Rick's Q4 strategy, see if this aligns with your vision." My stomach turned, a cold, hard knot tightening just below my ribs. I opened a folder labeled Mentoring. It wasn't full of training manuals, it was receipts, dinner receipts. 2 people, mid-range steakhouse, 3 glasses of wine, multiple dates spanning the last few. R months, and then the files. Pitch decks I'd spent weeks building, the ones I had watermarked confidential, were sitting in a shared folder labeled Leadership Pipeline, forwarded from Claire to Tanner, one after the other. She hadn't just ignored my work. She had been feeding him my playbook piece by piece. Scripts, process documents, training guides, everything I had created to make the firm efficient. She even sent him the Thompson prep notes, the ones I had drafted with Kayla's colored markers scattered on the duvet while I was sick in bed. I shut the laptop quietly, my hands ice cold. This wasn't just business strategy. This was sabotage. Planned, slow, deliberate sabotage. She used my intellectual property to prop up a 30-something golden boy she could parade in front of the board, knowing I would do the heavy lifting in the background. I sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. No TV, no phone, just me and the low hum of the refrigerator. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I wasn't confused. I was pissed. Betrayal like that doesn't make you cry, it makes you burn. I went out to the garage and looked at my legal pad again. The list I had started earlier wasn't just a coping mechanism, it was ammunition. The clock was ticking now. Claire just didn't know it yet. That Friday, I walked into the server room like I still gave a damn about the company's future. The room was cold, humming with the sound of cooling fans. Dave from IT was sitting at his desk, eating a breakfast burrito that smelled of eggs and hot sauce, humming along to some alt-rock playlist leaking from his headphones. He had no clue what was coming. "Hey man," I said, leaning against the doorframe and keeping my voice casual. "Need a quick systems overview before the handoff. Just want to make sure things don't fall through the cracks once Tanner takes over the deck builds." Dave didn't even blink, he wiped a crumb from his chin. "Yeah, for sure, you want backend access or just read-only?" "Better give me admin," I said smoothly, "just in case there's cleanup." He spun his chair, typed for 20 seconds, then looked up. All set. That was it, 10 years of blood, sweat, and loyalty in that building. And walking away with the keys to the kingdom started with a burrito and a password reset. I spent the next 3 hours downloading everything. Client decks, revision histories, email chains, workflow docs with my name in every single change log. I pulled timestamped edits, metadata, message headers, anything that proved I wasn't just part of the team, I was the engine. Then I copied it all to a nondescript flash drive I renamed Auto Invoices. No one questions invoice backups, they just nod and keep moving. Before I logged out, I checked Claire's shared calendar one last time, 4 entries marked private. Dinner, all after hours, all during the final stretch before the partner vote. I didn't react. I didn't slam my laptop shut or go storming down the hall to confront her. I just zipped the drive into the inner pocket of my laptop bag and walked out like it was any other Friday. Monday morning, I wore my sharpest suit. It was a charcoal 3-piece I usually saved for closing million-dollar deals. Today, I wasn't wearing it for a client. I was wearing it for closure. I left the tie at home, a small symbol of my new freedom. I walked into the office at 8:01 a.m. The air was still stale from the weekend. I printed my resignation letter on the heavy company letterhead and walked straight to Claire's glass-walled office. She was already there, typing furiously. I dropped the single sheet of paper on her desk before she'd even opened her email. "Pursuing new opportunities," it read, nothing dramatic, just clean, final. She looked up from her laptop, startled, like she hadn't even noticed I'd walked in. Her eyes scanned the paper, then flicked up to my face. She didn't look devastated, she looked relieved. "Best of luck, Rick," she said. That was it, that's what she gave me after 10 years of blood and bone in that company, after building her strategy from the ground up. Best of luck. I didn't say a word, I didn't offer a handshake. I turned on my heel, walked out, dropped my security badge in the plastic drop bin at the front desk, and didn't even take my damn parking pass. The 12-mile drive home was the quietest I'd ever experienced. It was just the hum of the engine and the kind of heavy silence that wraps around your ribs like a tightened belt. But that silence didn't last. As soon as the news hit the internal wire, my phone lit up like a slot machine. First, it was Alan from New Wave. "Heard you're out, what happened?" Then Chelsea from Greenrise, then Heather from Logan Brands. All of them wanted to know what the hell was going on. Claire had tried to get ahead of it, I learned later. She told folks I'd left because I couldn't handle not being chosen. She spun a narrative that my ego was bruised, that I was bitter. But clients aren't idiots. They remembered who they called when the Thompson launch almost cratered. They remembered who showed up at 7:00 a.m. for pre-briefs and who actually listened to their concerns. They knew who built the strategy and they were already making calls. I didn't sleep that Monday night. I sat at my kitchen table with a cold Coke and my old beat-up notebook, flipping through scribbles I'd made during late nights at the office. I picked up my phone and called Heather from Logan Brands. She was one of my first big wins. We de-built her brand from the ground up back when she was still using stock photos and Canva templates. She answered on the second ring. "Rick," she said, sounding shocked like I'd called from the grave. "Hey, just wanted to let you know I'm out, left the firm." Silence, then she said, "Wait, seriously, what the hell happened? Claire said you needed a break." I kept it clean. Long story, but I'm not there anymore. You'll probably hear from Tanner soon. She didn't respond right away, then dead serious she asked the question that sealed Claire's fate. Who the hell is Tanner? That was all I needed. I'm setting up a consulting firm, I said, my voice steady. If you ever need outside help, strategy, campaign design, anything, I'm available. You free this week? I am, she said instantly. Because I've got 3 things I didn't trust your team with. Now I get why. Let's talk Thursday. I hung up, stood up, and grabbed my laptop. By midnight, Wallace Strategy LLC was live. I bought the domain, bought email hosting, and built a barebones homepage with a landing form and a single line under the logo, built by the guy who used to do all the work. I wasn't waiting for revenge, I was building a business, and the market was listening. I spent the rest of that week doing what I do best, building. I worked from the garage at first. My setup was a folding table, my personal laptop, a laser printer, and a case of energy drinks. I didn't care about the aesthetics. I wasn't trying to impress anyone with a corner office view. I was building something that finally had my name on it. Claire wouldn't see it yet. She was probably too busy pretending nothing had changed, sipping her Chardonnay and telling the board that the transition was seamless. She was still backing Tanner, still thinking the clients would just fall in line because of the firm's prestigious name. But I felt the shift. The calls, the messages, the meetings getting canceled on her calendar, I knew because the clients were calling me. The first real sign of the collapse came from Tim, a junior analyst still inside the firm. He texted me late Tuesday, just 2 words, "It's starting." I called him that night. He picked up with a whisper like he was hiding in a broom closet. Tanner missed 3 client deadlines, Tim whispered. He didn't even know how to run a campaign handoff. Claire's covering for him, frantically trying to patch things up, but people are pissed. I leaned back in my garage chair, the cool night air drifting in. Which clients? Greenrise, Logan, and that new mid-tier one, Crestridge, all behind schedule. Feedback loops are a mess. Heather lit him up on a Zoom call yesterday. I almost smiled. And Claire, I asked. She's acting calm, but she's bleeding out in real time, Tim said. Words getting around. Everyone's starting to ask who actually ran things before. Oh, and guess what one of the execs found in the shared archive? What? Your marketing automation doc, the one with the workflows and ad cycles. I laughed, a sharp barking sound, the one only I knew how to run. Yep, they didn't even know it existed until last week. Claire told them it was unnecessary bloat. Anyway, that document kept half the companies back and running smooth for 3 years. Target timing, email triggers, retargeting structure. If that doc went dark, they were basically blind. You didn't hear it from me, Tim added, his voice dropping lower, but some of the partners are starting to ask questions. Like real ones, not fake boardroom crap. We hung up. I sat there in the garage with the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, and I knew exactly what I had to do next. The business was growing, yes, but I needed to ensure the past couldn't hurt me. I needed to build a wall of evidence so high they couldn't climb over it. The next morning, I was in my lawyer's office by 9:00 a.m. His name was Matt. He wore a sharp suit and had zero patience for small talk. I handed him the flash drive labeled auto invoices. He plugged it in without asking a single question. Run me through what you've got, he said. I laid it all out. Calendar screenshots of Claire's private dinners with Tanner timed perfectly around project milestones I'd built. Forwarded emails where she handed him full client briefs and pitch materials marked confidential. Her handwritten notes coaching him on how to present my strategies like we. Ray his own. I pointed at a PDF on his screen. This pitch closed Logan Brands. I built it on my own time after Claire told me to back burner them. Tanner sent it to them 3 weeks later with his name on the cover. Matt clicked through a few more files, his eyebrows raising slightly. He nodded. This qualifies as idea theft. We can make a solid claim of contract fraud too, if you were still under employment terms when she gave your work away. I confirmed. Throw in the misuse of internal systems. And the dinners billed to mentoring that were really just coaching sessions for my replacement. Matt sat back, steepling his fingers. You want this public? No, I said coldly. I want it sent directly to their legal counsel, quietly. Let the firm eat itself from the inside. He didn't smile, but he understood. We mailed the package out the same afternoon. Legal documentation, file logs, calendar captures, email printouts, all sealed and labeled. Confidential legal review, WALLACE employment matter. The trap was set, now I just had to wait for it to snap shut. The next morning, Tim texted me one word, meetings. I called him immediately. They shut the blinds in the boardroom, he whispered into the phone. Full partner emergency session, no outside staff, no phones. I stayed on the line while he sat in his car across the street, watching from the parking lot. I could picture the scene inside perfectly, the panic, the shuffling of papers, the realization that their star partner had been running a fraud scheme with the trainee. Claire walked in normal, Tim said, narrating the scene. 30 minutes later, she came out pale as a ghost, didn't say a word to anyone, went straight to her car. What about Tanner, I asked. He never showed up, Tim replied. His badge didn't ping the building, his desk is empty. I didn't say much, I just sat back in my garage chair with the window cracked, letting the cold air hit my face. It was done. The legal packet had landed like a bomb. That same day, 3 major clients formally transitioned to Wallace Strategy. There was no whisper campaign, no dramatic phone calls. Just full legal handovers with one shared line in each letter. We no longer have confidence in Claire Reynolds' leadership or the strategic direction of the firm. I didn't gloat, I didn't send Claire a smug text or post some cryptic victory quote online. Instead, I sent onboarding packets. One by one, I welcomed the clients I had built from scratch, this time under my own name. Clean contracts, flat fees, clear scopes. No execs to impress, just work done right. By Friday, I had to hire. I pulled in 2 freelancers I used to manage, brilliant creatives the firm had let go during a restructuring. One analyst from my old team hit me up that afternoon and asked if I had room. I did. Claire had handed Tanner my seat, thinking I'd walk off with nothing. She thought I'd fold. She forgot something important. I didn't need her table. I was already building my own. She showed up on Sunday. No call, no warning, just her gray SUV pulling into the driveway like it was still her place to be. I watched through the window as she stepped out. No makeup, hair tied back, hoodie over jeans. She looked smaller, like the weight of the last week had finally crushed her posture. She didn't knock, she just sat on the porch steps, arms wrapped around herself against the chill. I opened the door but didn't say a word. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. I needed to talk, she said, her voice trembling. I stayed in the doorway, creating a barrier. About what? Tanner's gone, she said. He ghosted after the board meeting. No email, no calls, nothing, just disappeared. I said nothing. I let her sit in that silence, let her feel the abandonment she had tried to force on me. I screwed up, she added, her voice cracking. We were good together, Rick, you and me, before all this. I stepped outside and leaned on the porch rail, looking down at her. We were good until you decided my ideas sounded better coming from someone 15 years younger. She wiped at her face, surprised to be crying. It wasn't about that, it was pressure, perception. The board was watching every move I made. I stared at her, unwavering. Don't feed me that. It wasn't personal, she insisted, desperation creeping in. I didn't mean to hurt you. I shook my head slowly. You made it personal the moment you used my work to build someone else's career. You made it personal when you laughed in that meeting. She looked down at the wood beneath her feet, then back up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I can fix this. We could figure something out. Maybe you come back, not full-time, but as a consultant to help stabilize things. I let out a breath, slow and steady. I already am a consultant. Her face twisted as the words landed. Just not for you, I added. She didn't try again, she stood up slowly, whip. Ed her hands on her jeans and nodded. You're right, I don't deserve it, I didn't think I'd lose everything. I didn't say what I was thinking, that she didn't lose everything, she gave it away. She walked down the steps, paused halfway, then looked back. Kayla still wants to talk to you, she's confused. I nodded once, I'll call her tonight. Then she got in her car and drove off. No fight, no screaming, just wreckage in the rearview mirror. And this time I didn't try to sweep it up. 6 months later, I stood at the podium at the Northwest Marketing Conference. It was a big ballroom with high ceilings and ugly carpet, packed wall-to-wall with industry professionals. The intro slide behind me read simply, "Who gets credit?" I told them the truth. I talked about what happens when leadership forgets who actually does the work. I spoke about when people in power treat effort like a free buffet and recognition like a luxury. I told them how easy it is to get comfortable, how dangerous it is to assume loyalty beats clarity. Halfway through the speech, I scanned the crowd and saw her. Claire was in the back row, no name badge, no firm logo on her lapel. She was wearing a simple black sweater and that frozen look people wear when their kingdom is gone. She didn't flinch, didn't cry. She just sat still, hands folded, like she had come to take her hits in silence. I didn't acknowledge her, I kept my eyes forward. Wallace's strategy had grown to 12 people, real ones. Sharp, honest, hungry, we had 5 major clients and a wait list of 3 more. After the talk, a young man walked up to me. He was nervous, holding his notebook tight. "Mr. Wallace," he said, "I'm Trevor. My boss has been taking credit for my stuff. Pitches, reports, even a whole campaign I built from scratch. I don't know what to do, man. I'm tired." I reached into my coat pocket and handed him a card. "Start documenting," I said. "Everything, keep a record, then come see me." He looked at the card like it was gold. "There's always room for people who actually know what they're doing," I added. He nodded, said thank you, and walked off with a little more spring in his step. That night I got home late. My daughter Kayla was still at the office with the team running analytics for a new launch. I grabbed a cold beer, stepped out onto the back porch, and sat in the same chair I'd once filled with nothing but anger. But this time I wasn't bitter. I wasn't a husband anymore, and I wasn't a cog in someone else's wheel. I wasn't waiting for validation from a boardroom that never saw me. I took a sip of the beer and looked out at the quiet night. I was Rick Wallace, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough.